What's going on, guys? Austin Zabak here with another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about how much real estate agents actually make in 2021 and even going into 2022. So we're going to dive right into it. If you're a real estate agent or you're thinking about getting your real estate license, then this will be a video for you. So there's a lot of different things I want to cover in the video, and there's a lot to talk about, so definitely make sure you stay to the very end of the video. And if you haven't already, I would appreciate it if you would just smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, because on my channel we're talking about real estate, we're talking about real estate investing. So we're going to go ahead and dive into it a little bit, and make sure you stay to the end of the video because it is a bit more complex than you might think, okay? And depending on where you live and depending on what you're doing in the real estate industry will determine how much real estate agents actually make. So hopefully you get a good understanding by the end of the video of what that actually entails and what it looks and feels like. So maybe you've heard before the terminology thrown out that a real estate agent makes 6% of the total sales price. And I want to kind of debunk that myth right now. The reality of it is there's a lot of variables that are going to come into play when we actually figure out what a real estate agent will make. So if you've ever seen real estate agents like Josh Altman or Ryan Serhant or Josh Flagg, or some of the bigger real estate agents in the nation, you've seen Selling Sunset on Netflix, okay, or whatever it is that you may have seen that may have intrigued you to actually go out and get your real estate license. We're going to break down what these people are actually making. So first and foremost, I want to start the video off by saying there is no standard to the exact percentage of a particular deal that a real estate agent will make. There is no law, there is no rule, and there really is no set standard. As a matter of fact, they actually taught me when I was in real estate school that we're basically not even allowed to say a particular standard or a particular norm, I guess you could say, because it actually does completely depend on the deal, the context of the situation, the buyer, the seller. There, again, are so many variables that come into play. So when people do refer to the 6%, what they're actually saying is that the seller's agent, the agent that is representing the seller, would be making 3%, and the agent that is representing the buyer would also make 3%. So if you had a $300,000 house, then $9,000 would be made to the seller's agent and $9,000 would be made to the buyer's agent if the seller listed the property on the market and a buyer's agent brought a buyer to purchase the property. They would each make $9,000. Now, in a lot of states, you can have what they call dual representation, okay, which is basically where a seller's agent will list the property for sale and they're representing the seller, but then they also bring the buyer to the table as well. And they call this actually a limited dual representation. Now, there are a couple of states, I believe, where they kind of frown upon it, but they say that you have to have a fiduciary responsibility to your client, okay? Meaning that you have to look out for their best interest, right? You have to do what is best for your client at any given time. Well, when you're in a limited dual representation situation, there's a reason that they put the word limited in front of the dual representation, because how can you actually have your client's best interest at heart if you're representing both the seller and the buyer? Let's just say, for example, the seller tells you, hey, Austin, the lowest amount of money I'll take on my house is $275,000. In a normal scenario, that's something you would keep confidential, right? If a buyer's agent called me and said, hey, what's the lowest amount the seller would take? I would not tell them the amount that the seller would take. Instead, I want to negotiate. I want to go back and forth. I want them to make the highest and best and most aggressive offer possible. And then I want to negotiate and I want to find a middle ground. And ideally, I want to get more for my seller than the lowest number that they'll take. But if I'm also representing the buyer, and the buyer says, hey, Austin, where do you think we should go in at? And the seller's already told me the lowest that they'll take. How do I give my buyer advice in that scenario? What do I tell my buyer? My buyer is also my client. I'm supposed to have their fiduciary in mind. Okay, so again, this is how you could, in theory, if you had a 3% to seller and a 3% to buyer, make a full 6%. But again, it is very difficult to represent both parties of a transaction. Doesn't mean it can't be done, doesn't mean you can't do it. I'm just saying, when you think about it from a psychological point of view, when you look at it from, actually trying to keep the best interest of all parties at heart, it is very difficult. difficult. So what then do real estate agents actually make per year? Well, here's what it's really going to depend on, okay? It will depend on the area that you're in, the average price point of the houses that are in your particular area, how many houses per year you actually sell, whether or not you're paying part of your commission to your broker or a team leader, whether or not it was a self-generated deal or a team-generated deal, meaning you either got the relationship with the client from, maybe your sphere of influence or holding an open house or whatever it might be, or your team leader or your broker actually gave you the lead and delivered it to you on a silver platter. And those are just some of the variables that are going to come into play when determining how much you can actually make as a real estate agent on a calendar year. But let's just say, for example, you live in an area where the average price point of a particular property, is $300,000. And let's just say that you're, better than a normal agent. We're going to talk about what a normal agent does here in just a minute, but let's just say you're better than a normal average agent out there, okay? At $300,000, one house per month would be $3.6 million a year in production. Now, if you were to get a full 3% commission on all of those deals, okay, meaning you got a full maybe 6%, but you just represented one party involved, then you would make about $108,000 for the year. Now, that's obviously what they call gross commission, meaning, you're not having any fees come out of that. You're not paying the broker, you're not paying a team leader, anything like that. So again, if you have a broker, you have a team leader that you have to pay, that is obviously going to come out of your $108,000. So according to the National Association of Realtors, there's about 2 million realtors in the country. And there's a lot of different estimates out there as to how much the average agent actually closes in a year. Some people say it's 1 to 2 a year, some people say 3 to 4, and some people say 4 to 5. But you really don't see averages going much higher than 4 or 5, which would probably put your average real estate agent in America at the average income of about $49,000 or $50,000 a year, okay? Depending on what article you look at and depending on where you look, there is a little bit of data out there that contradicts itself a little bit, but again, you want to probably assume that the average real estate agent in America makes about $40,000 or $50,000 a year. Now, that's largely due to the fact that real estate agents as a whole really don't take the industry very seriously, in my humble opinion, okay? Most real estate agents out there, when you look at the fact that there's 2 million real estate agents in the country, most people just have their license. They maybe sell a house a year, 2 houses a year to help their family, to help their mom, to help their dad, right? And just to maybe, do a favor for other people. So what I would say is if you're a brand new agent or maybe you've been an agent for a little while and you want to make more than 40 or 50 grand in a year, then you've got to be an above average agent, right? You can't be an average agent, okay? If you want to make 100 or 200 or 300 grand a year or even more than that, then, a couple of different things you can take a look at is, number one, where are you selling real estate? Wherever you're selling real estate, is there enough transaction volume for you to become successful, right? If you live in Bismarck, North Dakota, right, or you live in, Montana, or you live somewhere where, you're in a really small city, a really small town where there's not a lot of people at all, and even less people are buying and selling their house on, a weekly or monthly or yearly basis, then it will be a bit difficult for you to make, multiple 6 figures, right? If that's what you're trying to do, okay? So again, you really want to look at that first, in my humble opinion, and then you want to determine kind of, are you somewhere where you can truly succeed, okay? Again, if you're in Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, Miami, Scottsdale, right, you're in one of the bigger areas, then yeah, of course, you can make a lot of money. I mean, on one deal, you can make a ton of money. If you figure on $1 million deal, you make 3%, that's $30,000 on one deal, right? If you sell 5 of those a year, you're making $150,000 a year by selling 5 homes a year, okay? Now, I've personally done this. I've sold, multi-million-dollar real estate over and over and over again, right? And you won't always get a full 3%. Remember, the real estate commission is always negotiable, right? So, again, you're going to hear different things out there. People are going to tell you different stuff. But for me, if a seller wants to pay me 2% or 2.5% on a $1 or $2 or $3 or $4 million deal, I'll take that, right? Because I'm not going to sit there and lose the deal over 0.5% or over 1%. Now, that is just me. I know people that'll go out there and they'll get 4% by representing just one side of the transaction, okay? Because they've figured out a way to provide that level of emotional or psychological value to get the seller or the buyer to agree to that particular commission. Again, it is 100% negotiable though, right? So you have to understand that every transaction will be different, right? And if you have a system and a process as to how you're actually obtaining the deals that you're getting, then you can determine what your value is worth, right? If you do a ton of marketing and you do amazing photos and amazing videos and you run Facebook ads and Instagram ads and you're getting buyers coming in from China to buy penthouses in New York like Ryan Serhant, okay, then, that is a very unique proposition, right? You have a unique proposition to a seller, right? To a buyer. And therefore, that proposition might equal more of a percentage of the commission, right? Because you are somebody that is bringing a lot of value to the table. I will say also, we live in a day and an age where the real estate commissions are going down a bit, okay? Especially I would say on the buyer's side, but probably on the seller's side too. And depending on where you live, if you're already in the real estate industry, I would be curious as to what your opinion is down below. But I'm seeing a lot more 2% or 2.5% to the buyer's agent as opposed to a full 3%, okay? So again, you're seeing sellers not want to pay as much of a commission, okay? So, these are all things to keep in mind. Now, a lot of people argue that in the next, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, well, first of all, some people will argue that real estate agents won't even be around, and other people will argue that the commission will be significantly less and that a lot of the real estate agents won't be around, right? That the total number of real estate agents will eventually be cut in half, okay? That is a big argument that a lot of people make. I'd also say it's pretty normal for a real estate commission to be lower at a higher price point, okay? So if you're selling $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 houses, it is more normal, okay? It doesn't mean that this will always be the case. Again, it's always negotiable, but it is more normal for the lower price point to be a full, 3% or a full 6%, and for, 1 million, 2 million, 3, 4, 5, 10 million to be, 1 or 2% or 2.5%, because the bigger the house, the less that typically gets paid in commission. So again, like any other industry, there's a lot of money to be made as a realtor, right? As a real estate agent. If you are somebody that is an extrovert and you like talking to people and you like helping people and providing value, you like houses, you like showing houses, you like interior design, you like staging, you want to work with investors, you want to work with wholesalers, you want to maybe get into the flipping game eventually, be like Tariq El Moussa from HGTV, Flip or Flop, love it or list it, whatever it might be, then yeah, being a real estate agent can be a phenomenal career for you, okay? If you're somebody thinking about getting into the real estate industry, you should actually shoot me a direct message or comment down below, because we're actually looking for incredible real estate agents to come work with us, where I'll show you step by step on exactly how to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But regardless of where you go and who you join, I have other videos on my YouTube channel kind of talking about that. But again, being a real estate agent is a very lucrative, very, very lucrative career that I know for a fact you can find success in, okay? But again, like anything else, you've got to put in the work, right? You have to go all in. You have to make it happen. You cannot just sit around, right? A deal won't fall into your lap. My mentor told me a long time ago, he said, Austin, the best part about being an entrepreneur is the time freedom, right? The best part about being a real estate agent is the time freedom. He said also, the worst part about being a real estate agent or an entrepreneur is the time freedom, okay? Because the reality of it is a blessing and it is a curse, because nobody's gonna tell you to get out of bed in the morning. Nobody's gonna tell you to do the open house. Nobody's gonna tell you when and where to show up. So you have to take action on your own to make your goals and your dreams a reality. There you have it. If you have any more questions on this topic, I really appreciate it if you would drop in the comment section down below. I would love to answer any questions that you might have, so definitely feel free to do that. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.